to edit 2 pictures tonight, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot. However, I want to take my time and do things repeatedly. It helps, repetition really helps, so that not only do you kind of truly understand it, but then when you go back to replicate it, it's going to be clearer in your mind. Okay, she went from this to this. I saw her do that like 3 times. She went this, this, and this. So I want to go slow and repeat. First of all, this one's not fully done, but I'm pretty pleased with it. What we started with this little picture is that, okay? So that's our before shot. Now, neither of these images are from me, and honestly, I forgot who took them. And if you happen to be on tonight and you did take these pictures, I sincerely apologize. I'm hoping Laura let me know who this was. But they're gorgeous, gorgeous images, not mine. But somebody's allowed us to use them as examples, and we appreciate that. Now, this is a beautiful image, gorgeous backlighting, a little underexposed, but I got to tell you, when you have that kind of backlighting, it's hard not to underexpose. So I would expect this. This is a great capture right here. And so a little underexposed, and the white balance is could be better. All right, white balance could be better. Let me. I had to chunk my Photoshop CC. I had to. Actually, Creative Cloud altogether. I had to uninstall it, and I ended up having to get rid of Photoshop and Lightroom, uninstall everything, and then reinstall. Long story. It was a mess. So anyway, so my panels are not where I normally have them. All right. So I'm going to put this in here. Get rid of that. I had to do that last week. But it's all good. Okay, so I'm going to take a little snapshot. I'm sure somebody's going to have a question about that later. And, oops, I want to take a snapshot of the before or the after. That's what I want a snapshot of. Okay. All right, so now we're going to edit this from scratch. Now this was a raw file, but I didn't do anything to it in ACR. So when you open up a raw file in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, Adobe Camera Raw is what's going to open up. And you can do some editing in there, and that's fantastic. But the purpose of this is to show of this webinar is to show how to edit skin tones within Photoshop itself, not the plug-in ACR. So that's for another time. Here we're just going to work on using layers to edit this image and get very pleasing skin tones. Now, I'm going to give you a tip, and it's going to seem very trivial. And you're going to think, Amanda, you're really understating this. There's more to it. But in my experience, the primary issue with images of getting the right skin tone, it's all about the white balance. White balance. And that is the color temperature of your image. So if we open up our information box here, it's just the eye. If you don't know where yours is, then go to Window and click on Info, and it'll pop open. Now, I'm just going to mouse over this image somewhere, and I'm looking in the top left quadrant. So we've got these 4 quadrants, the top left, and wherever my mouse is, it's reading the color in that particular spot. So right here, our reds are 170, our greens are 126, and our blues are 118. Well, one, it tells us it's underexposed, because really for this image, we would expect the reds to be anywhere from 190 to like 220. So we know it's underexposed. We're going to brighten it up. But also, we see that our blue value is real low. Our green is, about 8 higher than that. But then we have this huge difference between the green and the reds. And that's not normal. And I'm going to give you like this little standard of what these numbers should look like. But to know that this isn't quite right. Another thing that would clue you in that the white balance isn't right is if the blue, that B value, if the blue is higher than the green, your image is too cool. Well, here it's really too red, okay? Too warm, and we need to fix that. And the way I like to fix it is with levels. All right. You can also do it with curves, but I'm going to do levels. There's several different ways you can get to a levels adjustment layer. You can click the circle that's half white, half black here at the bottom. Okay, the very bottom of the layers panel. So I'm in the layers panel. I go to the bottom. There's a circle that's half white, half black. Click on it, and I click on levels. That's one way. Another way, if you prefer, is the adjustments panel. And here we have these little icons, but if you mouse over them, it tells you what they are. Where it says add an adjustment, that's going to change to whatever I'm over. So right here, it's brightness and contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance. So I'm going to use levels. Okay. Now, within levels, I like to use the gray dropper. And I would click on it, and then I pull my mouse into the image somewhere, and I'm going to click on something that should be neutral. And the whites of the eyes are a great place to start. You want to zoom in. So the whites of the eyes, that or somewhere on her dress might have been good, and because it's neutral, white. Here, this was just on the white of her eyes, and you can keep clicking. So here I'm going to click on her skin. So that's I clicked on her skin, way too cool, isn't it? I click back on her eye, and much better. And we can see what it looks like. So there's before, and there's after. Before and after. Now, what if you say, okay, Amanda, I got close to one, but I think it's still too green, or it's still too cool, or it's still too whatever. Where it says RGB, you can click in here and go down. So if we decide, okay, this is too cool, I could go to the blue. All right, and this gray slider, if we pull it to the right, then it is going to warm up our image. It's going to pull those blues out. If we pull it to the left, it's going to add blue in. It's going to cool the image. So I'm going to pull it just a little bit. I don't forget where it was at, to the right. I don't know where it was at. Let's see. Sometimes I decide to go too far, and then I can go back. Okay, so let's say I like that. Okay. So that is the single best thing you can do for your image is fix the white balance. And I double clicked on the layer to title it so I know what I did there. We can turn off the little eye so it inactivates that layer. So now this is off. That's on. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm going to back up, Command minus to back up, or Control minus to back the image up. And I'm going to just run some actions from the color workflow. Pure color workflow, that's the sets on sale, and I thought I'd illustrate some things. So I'm going to brighten the image up. Okay, add a little bit of contrast. We're going to get back to skin tones here. I'm just making my workspace a little more pleasing, or the canvas I'm working on. Okay, so that brightened up the image and gave us a little contrast. Alrighty, so with just a few tweaks, we went from before, after. Much better, isn't it? Much better. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. Alrighty. Now, I'm going to work on her skin. And what I'm fixing to show you is a neat little trick, and it can be complicated, so I'm going to do it a couple times, plus I've got this other image I'm going to edit. Alright, so you're going to see it, so don't freak out. You're thinking, I don't even know what the heck you just did, Amanda. I will go through it slowly, I promise. Alright, so if I want to even out, if we got some splotchiness here and there, and I want to even out some of this the best I can, or let's say, it looks very different on one side of the face versus the other, or anything like that. There is a little trick with the solid color layer that I like to do. And so I'm going to come down to the circle that's half black, half white, and do solid color. Okay, black, whatever shows up there. It could be purple. I don't care. It looks good. All right. Then, so my box is around the solid color. I'm going to click on the mask. So you have to click your mouse on the mask, and now I'm going to invert it. So Command I or Control I. So now there's black color underneath this mask. And for those who are newer to Photoshop, how brushes or layers and masks and brushes work here is that this color is hiding under this mask, and we can reveal it by using a white brush. So I just made my brush white. My brush is activated. It's at 55% opacity. So watch what happens when I brush. Black comes out, doesn't it? But wouldn't it be great if something very close to her actual skin tone came out instead? So I'm going to double click on this, move the box out of my way, move my mouse somewhere into her skin, okay? And then I get to see a preview of what it's going to look like. That looks good. Might click here, down here, over here. So you just kind of decide what you want it to look like. So maybe I click right there and hit OK. So now I want to make sure I'm back on the mask. Your mask needs to be the one that's outlined. And I'm going to use a brush. I'm actually going to get rid of what I just did. All right. Now, I like to use a real low brush opacity for this. And I'm going to use that red screen trick. And when I was on Facebook very, very quickly this afternoon, or this evening when I was looking at some stuff, I saw somebody ask a question about that red screen trick that I'd used last time in the last webinar. Well, how that works is you just hit, there is a little diagonal, like a backslash that's just above the enter key or the return key on your keyboard. So look at your keyboard, all right? Look at the enter key or the return key and look right above it. There is the top one is just a vertical line, and then the bottom one is a diagonal. And I would consider that like a backslash, not a forward slash. If you just click that, it turns your screen red. Now, this is not an actual edit that's been applied to your image. This is just turning it red so that we can see where we're brushing. Wherever we brush, we'll turn like this off-white or this pistachio color, depending on your own screen. Okay, so, and the higher your brush opacity, the more vivid that pistachio color will be. So then I just brush, and it just shows me where I'm brushing. That's it. It's the only thing this little red screen trick does for you, is allows you to see where you're going, where you've been, very quickly and easily. Okay. Now the smaller your brush, the stronger it is. That's why you get a stronger pistachio color. And this is just going to apply this color. Now I'm going to go lower on my brush opacity and get her neck area here and chest there. Okay. Now I'm going to hit that diagonal key again. And look, it's way too overpowering, isn't it? It looks like a mask. So let's take this layer opacity and bring it way down. Way down. Okay, just evens it out a little bit. It's not perfect. If you want, and less is more. So I use a low brush opacity and I bring the layer opacity way down too, and just find what fits perfect for your image. And I just call this toning the skin. It just kind of brings it together. Now, another thing you need to think about too, before we do any type of skin smoothing, is continue to work on little small areas. And so if your image has any color cast, like if they got any splotchiness or pimples, scratches, anything that need to get removed, then work on that. And she has a little bit, let's turn this off here. You don't see it as much here, but a little bit right here, a little discoloration, and then just a little thing right here. And what I'm going to do is do a blank layer. So I have an empty layer. There's nothing on it. It's blank. And you can use, in Photoshop, we could use the patch tool, okay? In Photoshop Elements, You could just use the spot healing brush. We'll see how that works in here for this particular thing. And I want to make sure to sample all layers, make sure that's checked. Sample all layers. If you're in elements 11, 12, 13, or 14, oops, sorry. These choices that are up here in this toolbar are going to be down here in the bottom. Because your tool selection, or your toolbar is on the left side, just like it is here, but all of your choices, your tool menu is, per tool, is in the bottom. It's going to come out in the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to try the spot healing brush. And with this, we just click and drag. And it was too precise for me, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to back up. You can also try the Lasso Tool. I'm trying to show some things that because Elements doesn't have patch tool. We could try the Lasso Tool, and how that works is we would lasso an area that looks like this area. Okay, copy it, Control J or Command, oops. Yeah, I gotta be down here, sorry. Control J, there we go. And then I take my Move tool and I drag it over that area. All right, so this is a neat trick if you don't have the patch tool. This is actually very helpful for if you're trying to clone out anything and for some reason the patch tool or the content aware is not working like you want it to. Lasso in an area that will be perfect over that other, to replace that other area. You lasso the good area, make a copy of it, Control J, and then drag it with the Move tool. So here it is right here. So I'm going to pull it over. See it? I lassoed it and I copied it. That's that area I did. And so I can push it and pull it over here to go over this little area. And I can lower the opacity down, have it blend a little bit. Oops. So before, after. All right. And there's some others. So you want to take little small areas and do things such that it helps the person without taking away things that are inherent to them. So don't remove a bunch of moles, or don't remove all a person's wrinkles or things like that. You want to make sure they still look like themselves. That's the key. You got to be careful with that. All right. Now, let me come back up here. For showing the patch tool, I'm going to do that. So there's an area right here I want to kind of cover up. So I just highlight it, not cover it up, but kind of blend it a little bit better. And then drag to an area that I think would be a good match to look like that area. Command D to get rid of it, or Control D. And then you can always lower the opacity if you want it to blend in. Okay. Same for up here. If we wanted to try and take care of a little bit of this. This is trickier. And do a blank layer with each one. This is trickier because of her eyebrows right there. I like to blend in. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is do the skin smoothing. And I absolutely love. Oh, I need to, I'm just going to do fix blemishes. One. Label those layers. And, oh, this was the eyebrow, wasn't it? Fix. There we go. Now I am going to use the action, and it's in this section called Mini Retouch Set, and it's just the Oh So Soft Skin. I'm going to push play. Okay, now I'm down here, and I'm going to use a white brush on this mask, and I'm going to turn it red with that little trick, and then just brush wherever I want it to be nice and smooth. Now, the thing to know is you don't want to over smooth. You don't want them to be like plastic. Okay. And after we turn off the little red screen, you can always brush on an area. Okay, this is not allowing us to brush on, it's just showing us where we happen to have brushed. That's it. Then I'm going to lower it down more and get her neck area. You make sure that the skin that's connected, like neck and chest, doesn't look so different than the area that you worked on. Before and after. Now turn down, if we have the opacity all the way up, it looks perfect, doesn't it? There's before, there's after, but be careful of that. Be careful. You want this to look realistic, and you want it to look like it came out of the camera. You don't want people to look at things like, oh man, that's been photoshopped. You want them to think, man, this is beautiful. What a gorgeous image. And let it stop there. Okay. So we've only touched on things that have to do with the skin area, or affected the skin area. We brightened, we changed the white balance, we added a little bit of contrast, clarity. That did the overall image too. We toned the skin, we fixed a few blemishes, and we softened the skin. Okay, or smoothed it. So now there's before and there's after. I'm going to do a few more things that are very, very quick just to help polish this image up. And I'm going to do cheek and lips. All right, and I'm just going to click on that and increase my brush opacity a little bit. And I just want to balance out her lips, like part of it was missing the little lipstick she had on. Just kind of balance that out. If we wanted to add any little type of blush, we could lower it down and just like a click and a click, give her a little bit of color if we wanted to. So there's before, there's after, and I sparkle. And I'm going to answer questions. I know there's a lot of questions about the skin toning, I'm sure. All right, and I want to do the bold lashes, and all I'm going to do is just go over like that. I'm kind of lazy. All right, and a little bit of clarity. And a little bit of contrast just to over the whole thing. All right. That's with the eyes. All right. And I know I actually given her a little bit of eyeliner, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it alone. Okay. So, our before and after. Before, after. We'll back up. Before, after. Now if you think, okay, I want it to be a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter, then we can definitely do that. So I can here and make it warmer. So it's a little more sunlit, sun-kissed, and we can lower that down a little bit. We want to make it even brighter. I just want to brighten it up a little bit more, make it a little brighter if we want, although I like it where it was. Then that's it. I'm happy with it. Very happy. Before, after. Okay, so let's do the same thing but with this image, all right? This one is too cool. Or let's look at the information, and I'm putting it over her forehead, okay? Now, can you see this box, the info box? I'm looking at it. Let's see if I can make this any bigger. Well, didn't make the numbers any bigger, sorry. All right, so I'm just left my mouse over her forehead, And we see that the red is 179, the green is 149, and the blue is 157. So I'm going to get a little more technical about the numbers this time. I just wanted to kind of introduce you to them with the first picture. Then we'll get more technical with this one. All right. So here, one, it's a little underexposed, a little dark. We want those reds to be a little bit higher. Now, if somebody is African American, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, and their skin tone is darker, then those values will be low like that. They will be 179 and less. Okay, so the darker the skin, the lower the values. The brighter the skin, the higher the values. So don't worry if you have somebody think, oh, it's supposed to be in the 200s. Well, no, if they're very dark complected, they won't look right if you make their skin be in the 200s. Okay, so be careful about that. But what I want you to look at with this one is, in case you're not there yet with your photography to be able to recognize an image that's too cool. That's probably the number one thing that people have trouble seeing, is if an image is a good white balance or if it's too cool. And some people might think, oh, this looks great. But I could tell right away it was too cool. Now, and here's the proof in the pudding. All right, so red is 179, green is 149, and blue is 157. All right, blues are never going to be higher than greens unless you're sick, painted with something, or dead, okay? The blues are not going to be higher because then means you have a blue or gray skin tone, and that's not healthy. I've actually seen somebody who had like a heart problem and they were very grayish blue. All right, so, but if somebody is healthy and they're not going to be this blue, so we need to fix this. And watch what happens. We'll look at it before and after once we do the white balance, okay? So just come up here to adjustments, click on the levels, and click on the gray dropper. And we can zoom in, Command plus or Command minus. And I'm going to click on the whites of her eyes. Okay, instantly so much better. Maybe a tad too green, but we'll see. Now, I want to show you. So now, look at them. So now we have two sets of numbers. We have one column, and then we have slashes, and then we have another column, right? So our red did not change. Our red stayed at 179 both times. Our green went from 151 to 161, so it increased. And our blue went down from 159 to 148. All right, so we definitely made an improvement. And now our blues are no longer higher than our greens. Good job. Good job. Now, I'll get a little technical here. But know that this is not always. This is a rough guideline. Generally, your greens are going to be 10 to 15 points higher than your blues. Okay? 10 to 15 points higher than your blues. And then typically your reds are double that difference. So if we have a 15-point difference between green and blue, then we should have roughly a 30-point difference between the greens and the reds. Okay. So in our after, we have a 13-point difference between 148 and 161. Okay. So that means we roughly should have about a 30-point difference between our green 161 and 179, and we don't. We don't have that, but that's okay. What I'm going to do first, we're going to do some things. We're going to brighten this image up. And I'm just going to do that with levels again. And I'm going to brighten up the grays, the midtones here, the gray slider. Pull in the blacks a little bit. Raise up this whites a little bit. Just brighten this image up a little bit. All right, this is if you want to do it on your own. So that was that. I don't use the whites that much because it can really blow out those highlights. All right. So now look at our red. It's getting higher, isn't it? It's getting closer. So we've hit that 190 threshold. I told you somewhere between 190 and like 220. So it's much brighter now. Okay. I'm not really going to worry about those other numbers. If I feel like it looks good, then I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, like I said, it is rough guesstimate, okay? Some guideline to look by, but don't force it. If it looks good to the eye, and you're like, okay, I like this, leave it alone, okay? Or you can always come back later and tweak it. So this one I'm going to do fix white balance, and this one we brightened. Okay, so very quickly we went from that to that. A whole lot better, isn't it? A whole lot better. So now I'm going to do my little trick. And, well, actually with her, okay. With her, we have some redness we can get rid of. I'm going to do that after. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do the solid color. Don't worry about what color comes up. Again, it's just the solid color adjustment layer. In Photoshop Elements, you have that layer as well. I haven't used any layers that Elements doesn't have. So now I'm going to click on the mask and invert it. Command-I or Control-I. Control or Command. So on a PC, it's Control-I. On a Mac, it's Command-I. Now, I'm going to double-click on the black or whatever your color is. It might be purple, might be blue, whatever. I'm going to click somewhere in the image, okay? I knew this was too red. That's why I almost took care of this beforehand. Looks like she's a little sun-kissed, but that's okay. We're going to worry about that later. I actually may go with that one. Okay, because this might tone down that redness a little bit. Now, I've got a black mask, and right now my brush is black. So black brush on a black mask will do nothing. It's neutral. It's the same thing. Nothing will happen. We need to make sure that we use a white brush. So I'm going to hit X on my keyboard, and all that X does is flip it. It flips whatever those two are. And a brush opacity, somewhere in the 30s, I tend to do. And now, you don't have to use the red screen trick if that is boggling some people's minds, so I'll do it without it. We'll see how well I did. Again, we're going to lower the layer opacity, so don't worry. And again, the smaller your brush, the stronger it is. So I'm going to have to work on that. I'm going to come back and take some of that off. Okay. All right. Some of that. May actually go even lower and get some of her arm. Tell people not forget about the other skin that's showing. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it down. Bring it down. Okay, so now, if you decide it's a little, I don't want it to be that strong, I actually like it, I'm going to leave it alone. But let's say that yours on one side is more than you want it to be. So how you take care of that is you make your brush black, lower it real low to like 10%, and then brush over it, okay? What that's going to do is it's going to neutralize some of it. And you can keep brushing, and it's going to keep neutralizing and keep neutralizing. So some of the change that you made will be covered back up, okay? So that's if you go too far in a particular area. All right? Let me come down a little bit. Okay. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. All right. Now, if we still have some redness in areas that we want to get rid of, then there is some handy, and color cast is something that really a lot of people struggle with. And in the pure color workflow, there are some things you can do to help, or some actions here to help you with color cast. And let me find it. Oh, where's it at? All right, here it is. Paint off color cast. Okay. So we open the folder, and if you're in Elements, there is a ungroup action that you click on, and it opens up that folder. All right, so Oh, gotta move this. So here we want to tame red. So I'm gonna click on this one, and the layer opacity is already really low, so I'm gonna increase my brush opacity a good bit. And oh, not 1%. It's kind of sticky. It's stuck there. And then just kind of brush over some areas that are red. Let's see what happens. Kind of just neutralize those areas a little bit. And it did. Maybe a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull that back down. Okay. So before and after. You can see it definitely pulled the red out. But if you like the sun-kissed look, then you can leave that in there. It really is up to you. I just wanted to show how to use this particular action as you run it, and then whatever problem you're having. And know that sometimes what you think might be red might really be magenta. So if you run the red one and you brush and nothing happens, click over to the tame magenta and brush over. Blues and cyans can be mistaken for each other. So try that. And often when you have a green cast, there's a lot of yellow and green. So you can run the yellow one too. And I see a little bit here, so I'm going to click on the yellow one. There we go. Okay. All right, and I had, so I'm going to close this back up. Now, her under eye circles, I want to kind of tackle those. And this is the easiest fix in the world for under eye circles. Create a blank layer. Okay, create a blank layer. Get your eyedropper. So hit I on your keyboard, I. Now, let me show you this. So what you're going to do is I want you to keep an eye on this, keep your line of sight on this box right here. And I'm going to click somewhere in her under eye circles. And you see how grayish, or it's like a taupey gray color, right? And then that is the skin color right here. So see the difference? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right here. So what that's doing is it's making my color of my brush this particular color. And now I'm going to hit B for brush. I'm going to lower it down. And I'm going to brush with this right here. And then lower this way down. Just changes it just a little bit. I'm going to do this side over here. Just slight. If we took away her under eye circles altogether, then she wouldn't look like her anymore. So be careful about that. Okay, so here's our before, after. And now I'm going to run the skin smoothing. And the skin smoothing is so important to that overall skin tone. It's getting things smooth, just, knocking the edge off. Okay, and it does it down here at the bottom. So if you're looking at the top and you're saying it's not running, it's down here at the bottom. That's where it's going to put it. Got my brush. Now, if you hit an area you didn't mean to hit, so let's say I hit her eye, and I didn't mean to hit her eye. I'm going to show you what to do for that. Whoops. Okay. So I hit her eye by accident. So what you want to do is hit the X key on your keyboard, or hit this little arrow, make your brush black. And now if we go back over with 100% brush, it's going to remove 100% of that where I swiped it. Because we don't want the eyes to be smooth. Because what that means is then we've blurred them. And we don't want to blur the eyes, do we? Okay. There's before. There's after. Now I didn't use 100% brush opacity. I used a lower brush opacity. That was for when I removed, backed off the eye area. I'm going to click on that. All right. And I'm going to back this down a little bit more. I don't want it to be perfect. Okay. Forgot what this was. Oh, that's under eye circles. Here we go. Now, just because I like to finish it all off, I'm going to do the eyes. Because it's so fast and easy. Open it up. If you're in Elements, click on the layer and do the ungroup action. Whites over eyes look good. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. Okay. So the white, this was the eyes. Really quick there. Alrighty. So here is this image. Before and after. I'm going to warm it up just a little bit. I tend to like warmer images. There we go. I like that. Okay. Before and after. Before and after. If we want to zoom up just to her face, I'm going to turn off all the layers here. So the first one we did was the white balance. Okay, so I just turned that on, and then we brightened it. And with that, I did a little bit of contrast too. And then I kind of toned it a little bit. Took care of a little bit of the redness here and there. Kind of tweaked her under eye circles. We softened her skin. We gave her a little bit of eye detail. And then I made it a little warmer. Okay, so we've done the same things twice. Okay, same thing twice. I'd hope to get in 3, but it looks like I'm running out of time. I try to take it very slow and be very clear about things. So you're not going to be slave to the numbers, right? We do have some rough numbers to go by. Reds somewhere in the like 190 to 220. Greens anywhere from it can be anywhere from like 140s to 170s, 180s, depends on the image. And then the blues, as long as they're 10, 15 points lower than the greens, that's what's important, okay? And remember that the darker the complexion, the darker the skin, that color, that red, those values are going to be, the lower they're going to be, sorry. The darker the skin complexion, the lower those values will be. So don't be alarmed by that. Take care of the white balance, fix that, and do a little skin toning with a little solid color trick. Take your under eye circles, take care of those with the easiest under eye circle fix ever. When I wrote it Everyday Elements, that was the title of that blog post. And it was a big hit on Pinterest. Make sure to brighten, fix that exposure. Keep brightening until you feel like it's too bright, and then back it down from there. So go till it's too bright and then back down. Work on a little color cast and gave her a little eye detail, but I really didn't do a tremendous amount to this image. Now, if you want to save these layers, that's why I labeled them. So if I later want to come back to it and tweak it and say, oh, I went too far with that, let me back that down. That's the beauty of layers. So if I wanted to save these, I don't flatten, and I come and I do File, Save As, and the format is going to default to Photoshop. If you're in on a PC. Gosh, it's been so long since I've saved a PSD on a PC. Anyway, it'll ask you for the format as well, but it's going to default. It's going to want to save it as a PSD. And go ahead and do that. And I'm going to put in here just a clean edit. This is what it is. And make sure the layers is checked and hit save. So if a year from now I open this image back up, my layers will be here. And I can come in and say, oh, that was a little bit too much skin smoothing. Let me back that down. And so I can fix it and then flatten it and save it as a JPEG and print. Whereas if you flatten and you don't save those layers, and somebody, if you're, say it's a client, and they're like, you know what, you took out some of her moles and we really want them back, or because that happens sometimes, if you got different moles in the face, some people don't realize it and don't realize they're actually a mole. They think it's a blemish and they've taken it out. And that's actually happened, not to me, but other people. Or somebody says, you know what, can you add back a little bit of this because we don't feel like they look like themselves or whatever. I mean, whatever it is, then you can have the original to come back and just tweak those layers. That's if it had took you a while. Now, if it was a very quick edit, I don't save the layers. I don't. But if it took me a little bit and I had to tweak here and there, then I'll go ahead and save them. Just know that PSD files are pretty big and they will take up some space. Okay. All right, so time for some questions. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad. Somebody said they'd never used the white balance correction in Photoshop. I'm glad. Okay, that helped. Let's see. Now, and know that what you're seeing might be different than what I'm seeing. Oh, come on. If your monitor might show the colors a little bit different. Somebody said her hair looks a little green, so we'll come down to the fixed white balance, and I'm not seeing it, but that's my screen, so it might show up different on your screen. We've come to learn that monitors can show very different things. All right, so that being said, I went to the fixed white balance layer, and I don't know which picture they're talking about, this one or this one, probably this one. Okay, and I am going to make sure my brush is black, so I've got a black brush, and I'm going to lower it down real low. Because when you're brushing in Photoshop, it's cumulative. It means the more I brush it, the more, and see how it's bringing out that, it's making it look reddish. So let me back up, do even less. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helps some. If I do too much, her hair's gonna look red like the original. There, let's see if that's better. There's before that. That's after, I don't know. It looks a little redder to me, but that's okay. All right. Kiki asked, how do you keep the image from becoming grainy when editing? Is there a way to fix this in Photoshop? I've never had that happen with my own images. Other people have asked that question before or had problems like that, but I have not. I edit mostly in Lightroom, but even when I edited solely in Photoshop before I started using Lightroom, I never had that problem. So I'm wondering if it's the resolution you shot in. Are your images raw, Kiki? Is that what you're starting with, a raw file? I don't know. If anybody has suggestions about that, how to keep an image from becoming grainy when editing. I have not had the problem, but I've heard some others who have. Okay. In the second example, you ran the skin smoothing under all the adjustments that you'd done before that. Any reason that action was not played at the end? Okay, good question. So what happens, and I actually didn't do it, the program, sorry, I'm not choosing to throw out of Photoshop. the GoToWebinar does that. When I look at the questions, it throws me back to my web browser. Okay, so I ran the skin smoothing after I'd fixed, I'm pretty sure I ran it after I fixed anything skin related. But what it does, whether you're up here, it runs and throws it here at the bottom. So it looks like I did it early on, but I really didn't. I did it after the skin color and the color cast, and even the under eye circle fix. And that's when I ran the skin softening. But it puts it down here at the bottom. So don't worry about where it's at. It really works. But good question. So the way I would do it if I was doing it on my own, okay, is if I didn't, now I prefer the skin smoothing. This is, completely transparent here. The action, whatever they do in this action is better than my own skin smoothing, okay? So how I would do this, so I'm gonna turn this layer off. So I turn the skin smoothing off. I would come up to here and I would do in my own, if I was doing it on my own without any actions, which by the way takes a lot more time, and I have 4 kids and I homeschool and I work from home and I'm losing my mind. And so I need all the helps I can get to make things faster. So I don't feel like I get a Girl Scout badge for doing 100% of every edit without using an action or a preset in Lightroom. I'm all about what saves me time. And these actions do a phenomenal job with a few clicks of a button, and I don't have to do over here and then do this and do this and then do this and do this. And I can just go, boop, and it does it. So I prefer to do that. So what I'm going to show you takes more time and is not as good. All right. So I would do a stamp, which is, and I've not done one in so long now, Shift, Command, Option, E. All right, there we go. Except for it, yeah, okay, I'm gonna turn these off. Okay. Turn off. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So Shift, Command, Option, E, or when I say command, that's a control on PC. So Shift, Alt, Control E on a PC, Shift, Option, Command E on a Mac. I have to think about it. All right, so I do that and it creates this stamp layer. And then if I was going to soften, I would go like filter and blur, and I used to use Gaussian blur, but actually I would do noise and then median, okay? Again, the action does a better job, so I don't do it on my own anymore. And a radius of like 7 or 8 or 9, something like that. All right, so it's blurring it, and then I add the mask, and then I invert it, and then I brush. Okay, so that is how, if you're going to smooth the skin and keep it up here, then that's what I would normally do, is I would do a stamp layer, and then, because what stamp does is it takes everything below it and creates almost like a new background, but it's still up here in the layers. So that's a lot of times you'll see some actions run, like when I used to make actions, mine did a stamp up at the top. But that's what it was doing, is combining all those. But again, I don't think that my skin smoothing is as good as this action. I much prefer, I feel like it's a better quality skin smoothing. Okay. But don't worry about it being at the bottom. I feel like that, just so you know where to look for it. And it's down there. But good question. Good question. And again, the question was, why wasn't it up here? Why? Because it looked like I did it first when I really didn't. I did it last of the skin things, but before the eye sparkle. I hope that made sense. Okay. Okay, so the question is, if you don't mind, would you talk about the right RGB values for a correct exposure? Well, again, that really depends on your subject. If your subject has dark skin, then it's going to be lower. But, for well exposed, I would think anywhere from 190 to 220 would be your reds. Okay, let's look. I'm going to click on this layer up here, and we'll look at our info. Oh, I can't do that. Make a stamp here. You actually have to have some pixels. Okay. So we see now, when this edit's all said and done, we see that our RGB, the red, is almost at 200. It's at 198. I think it started at 170, I think, or 180, something like that. And our greens is 179, and our blues is 163. Now, it's not perfect. You can tweak it, you can make it, you can work real hard to get it all perfect. Another action or adjustment layer that you can use in Photoshop, Elements users, I'm real sorry, this is not available to you yet, unless it came in Elements 14 and I don't know it. But color balance. So this is a good way that you can tweak those colors. And let me, if I turn off, let me turn off all of these here. Turn this on. Some people really like to use color balance, and so we could tweak things with this particular one. Okay, so just by adjusting those sliders, then you can do that. I prefer the levels because it's like I click around and find one that's good rather than I'm playing with the teeter-totter. I tend to only use color balance when I feel like I've done as much as I can with levels and possibly even hue saturation, and I'm still having a little trouble with my color. Then I open up color balance, and then it is just, and it's always been just the trick I needed. But I usually use it as a last resort, whereas some people really start there. And it just depends on what works for you. Okay? Depends on what works for you. So that's color balance. Me, I like the levels, the dropper. Curves will work the same as well. So let's do that one here. So some people love curves, and some are running curves. And look, we have the black, gray, and white dropper. So I'm going to click the gray, and we'll click on whites of our eyes. There we go. And you can see here, move this thing, you can see our green moved up, our blue moved down, and it looks like our red may have moved down just a little bit. And we can keep clicking. So if we, there's something kind of neutral over here, click there, maybe in her dress. You can keep clicking until you find one that works better for you. And there's a little eye, so you can turn the eye off here in the layer or eye off in the adjustment. Depends. Now, some people also like to brighten and adjust the contrast and the brightness in the same layer. I prefer to have two different layers so that if I need to, so here I do white balance fix. Whoops. And then I would do another one, if you like curves, then we could do another one that just deals with brightening it and a little bit of contrast, But I like to keep them separate. But some people like to do it all in one, and whatever works for you. Lots of good actions in here as well. We come up here. Okay, so if I want to run some actions, there's lots of we got color boost and tame color cast and muted color, green shift, all this kind of stuff. And then we have some just overall global actions like light and airy, color me pretty, velvet color. So by the way, I love light and airy and I love color me pretty. There's another one too, elegant, and some of them have a very softening effect. And I love it. Okay, so here, that was light and airy. Isn't that pretty? And then each one has a black and white option. So it's like you get two sets in one. Lots and lots of great actions. I highly recommend it. I promise you will not be disappointed.